Nascido no dia 12 de setembro de 1980, Gus G é um guitarrista grego cujo virtuosismo, estilo e talento o colocaram entre um dos melhores de sua geração. Tendo participado de vários projetos de sucesso, como as bandas Firewind, Dream Evil, Mystic Prophecy e Night Rage, o guitarrista ganhou ainda mais notoriedade ao ser convocado para tocar na banda do legendário Ozzy Osbourne, em 2010. Recentemente, nós do Gyn Rock City tivemos o prazer e a honra de conversar com Gus G sobre o novo disco da sua banda, sua carreira e música em geral. O papo você confere agora.
You're Pablo. Hi, Pablo.
Yes. How are you, man? First of all, I want to thank you very much for, making this possible and giving us this interview. I'm pretty sure that your Brazilian fans are going to love it, so it's going to be great.
Cool. Where are you? In Sao Paulo? Which place?
No, I'm actually, it's a capital called Goiânia. It's closer to the center of the country. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's more near like the capital of the country.
Okay. Near Brasilia.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 2-hour ride from Brasilia.
Okay, got it.
Have you been to Brazil?
I've been to Brazil 3 times.
Have you played here?
Yes. Not where you are, not in your city.
But in São Paulo, Rio.
In Brazil, I've made 2 tours with when I was with Ozzy, and then 2 years ago we were there with Firewind.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. And do you guys have plans to come back ever? How is that looking? Because you just released a new album with Firewind, right?
Yeah. I mean, we would like to, but right now there isn't any touring happening around the world, so.
And how are things in Greece? Is everything still in lockdown? How are things there?
No, we're not on lockdown because we had very few cases of corona here. And, I mean, we did have a lockdown for about 6 weeks, and, shops slowly after that started opening and the measures were lifted slowly. And now there's flights coming in. So there's some tourists because Greece was, we reacted very quickly. So there were not many cases here. I think overall 2,000 cases. That was it. And maybe 200 people died, I think, which is very low numbers compared to most of the countries of the world. And, so now they're accepting, we're having tourists flying in and, this is a tourist country. So people are trying to kind of get back to normality. But look, it's still people are still wearing masks, in all shops, and that's how people work as well. And so everybody's very, very careful. There's even a few shows happening, some open air shows. So we'll see how that goes. And I think in Brazil, it's pretty bad right now, right?
Yeah, we are for a while, we were the second country with the most, the most cases. I don't know if we passed the United States or not, but yeah, it's still we're not out of the woods yet. So we're still going to have to things are going to take a little longer to get back to normal.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because, you never realize how much you miss all these things that it sounds like, oh, staying home is not so bad, but it actually, it has a big impact on social life, on mental health. It's a big problem.
Yes, that thing, the mental health, and of course the economy, all these things go hand in hand. So,
exactly.
But I hope there's a vaccine soon enough. Let's see, man.
Well, I just saw on your, the Firewind, Instagram page, I think you guys have a couple shows in August, right?
No, that's next year.
Oh, so it's a year from now.
It was a festival in Holland, Dynamo Fest, and we were supposed to do it this month, but the whole festival, obviously, all the festivals are canceled. So they moved it to next year, and they just announced the dates for next year, and they asked us to return to play, and they made the announcement, but as you know, everything is very liquid right now. Who knows what the world will be next year again. So, but the plan is to move on with our lives and maybe announce some shows for next year. Let's see.
And how did that work? Because you your new album, right? The Firewind album. You guys just released it a couple months ago. How long ago was that?
A couple of months ago. Yeah, correct.
And how does it work? You release an album, but you can't tour to support the album. How are you guys kind of getting the word out that the album is out there?
Well, I mean, luckily we have a powerful tool called the internet.
Right.
And with that tool, I can talk to you now in Brazil, and I can see you and you can see me. So it's the same way, we use the tools we have to promote the album online, and we do obviously, release videos, do all these kinds of things, all kind of promo efforts and press. I mean, look, of course it's not 100% the same going out there and, putting together a show and presenting that to people and touring all the parts or most parts of the world. Oh, sorry. It's not the same, but the thing is that the music is out there, and I think it's a different situation slightly, and maybe it's a time where people have more time to check out music, and maybe the music can do the talking itself in current situations where we cannot really reach everybody in every part of the world and travel like nomads like we usually do. So I mean, one thing is, of course, you miss the shows and all that in the traditional way of doing things, which is playing gigs. But, we put the stuff out there and we hope for the best. And I mean, I have to say the feedback is really good, and it seems to be an ongoing thing. Like people are still streaming and buying the album, and it's nice, And I think we need music. So we need music in times like these more than ever.
Yes. Yeah. I guess you mentioned something that is dead on. Is like it's in a situation like this when people are stuck at home. Music and movies and series, that kind of thing, like entertainment like that is like something that people turn to in order to kind of not go crazy, right? So
yeah, it's essential in a way. Yeah.
And you guys have a new lineup in this album, right? There's a new singer. And how did that impact the sound of the band? I mean, what should fans expect from this new lineup? Big changes or?
Honestly, when the singer is obviously, he's the voice, the guy who says all the words and stuff, and that's the guy who speaks to people's minds, and and that impacts the sound, when you change a singer. But I think Herbie, he has made this band sound more Firewind than ever in a way. His voice reminds a little bit our early days when Stephen Frederick was in the band, because he has that kind of harsh kind of voice, this raspy voice.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of fans have said that, it reminds us of the early days, and they like that. At the same time, he has his own unique style, so he brings in some new elements to the table. Musically, the album, I think, is pretty diverse. There's a lot of variety, and it sort of combines a lot of the things that we've done in the past. So I would say it's 100% Firewind album. It's definitely not like a major change or anything. If nothing else, it's more like a return to form, but with a more fresh 2020 approach. We went back to being a more guitar-oriented band because now we don't have a keyboard player in the band either. So we went, like I said, it reminds a lot more the earlier days when there was, because we started out as a 4-piece without keyboards anyways.
But you recorded, like when you guys had a 4-piece, you recorded some keyboards, right? Did you do?
Yeah. I play the keyboards myself. I'm not a keyboard player, but because I produce the albums and whenever I hear some certain parts, I'll play them and I'll program them and stuff. So there is keyboard still. We don't have the solos that Bob used to play. So I cannot solo like he does, of course, but but it's okay, because it was also an opportunity for me to reapproach and rethink the sound of the band, kind of like kind of almost going like through a rebirth a little bit. So it was a good opportunity for me to do that, to make these changes now.
Nice. And Firewind is pretty much like, well, that's my take on it. It's pretty much your baby, right? It's something that it was like one of your earliest projects and something that you have always been working on.
Absolutely, yeah.
But at the same time, you also have your solo career. You released like 3 albums by yourself, not involved with Firewind. How is that different? Like, couldn't you have done the same thing in Firewind? I mean, how does that work?
I know what you mean. And actually, that's a question that I get a lot from people, which shows me that maybe some people have been confused.
Okay.
I guess maybe I have not communicated this as I should have, but because my solo records were not people expected that I would put out instrumental guitar music, and I didn't do that. I did stuff with vocals, with singers. So a lot of people were thinking, why can't you do that in Firewind? Which makes sense. It's a legit question, but the thing is, when I started my solo career, the whole idea was I put Firewind on hiatus. I put the band on ice because we were going through all these lineup changes at the time, and I just had enough, and I wanted to do something else and branch out, play with other people. So I did a solo record back in 2014 called I'm the Fire, and that quickly escalated to the next album, and then I started getting offered to do tours, and I started enjoying doing this, to take my mind off from the stress of the band all these years. So it was like a fresh thing for me. But like the way it operated was also a little bit like in Firewind. It was like a band.
Right.
I mean, when I say a band, it was like on stage, it was a band with a singer, with a front man. So towards the end, it got a little bit like, okay, so now what? So, I mean, I decided to go back to Firewind, and, then in 2016, I brought the band back. We started doing some shows. We put out the next album, which was Immortals. But at the same time, I was getting offered all these solo shows, So it's like these two kind of bands coexist, even though they have similarities. I mean, the sounds are not exactly the same because Firewind is more like classic metal and stuff, and the solo stuff is more rock and all that. But it kind of coexists nowadays. And to me, I guess looking into the future, I would have to reapproach my solo career. I need to reapproach that or reconstruct that. I mean, in my opinion, Firewind is, we have our sound and our style. And, I think the next time that I do a solo record, it has to be something that stands out of Firewind and something that is different, something that I cannot do in Firewind.
Right. Because
the band is active now. It's not on hiatus. So maybe I'm thinking next time I should do an instrumental record, where my guitar is the voice.
The voice.
Yeah. So that would be something different from what Firewind does, So I think
one of the things that I think it's interesting about your solo project is gives you opportunity to collaborate with many other musicians, something that you might not be able to do while working with Firewind. And as I was researching for this interview, I saw that you are very prolific. Like, there are some years in your life that you were like working in 5 projects at the same time. And I was like, that's one of the questions that I had for you is like there's actually 2 questions. The first one is, working with so many projects, does that take away from your focus? Like, do you sometimes feel overwhelmed, like, oh, I'm doing too many things at once? Or does that give you more fuel for your creativity? And the other question is, taking into consideration that you have worked with so many, you have done so many collaborations with other musicians, is there like a musician, a singer, somebody that you haven't had the opportunity to work with that you would really like to?
Okay, yeah, good question. Well, first of all, when I was doing all these bands, I was like in 4 bands at the same time. That was very early in my career. That was when I was first starting out. And the reason why that happened was I was in all these projects that were not signed to any label. So I was just doing demos with various friends and trying stuff out. I was like in my early 20s And all of a sudden, all these projects got signed to labels. So I was like, okay, now what? Now I've committed to all these guys and I have to, so I wanted to start also my career, so I thought it was a good idea to do a few albums, get a lot of experience under my belt and see how it goes. And eventually I could only do that for a couple of years, I could only do that for 3 or 4 years. I think after 2005, I quit all the bands that I was in and I focused on Firewind because I knew if you have to focus on something if you wanted to grow. And that's what I did. So it's good to do it in your early stages of your career, to have your kind of like play your cards open and have,
options.
Have the options and see and have different experiences because that's how you learn a lot. You absorb a lot of stuff, by working with other people. But at some point you have to make up your mind what you're going to do. And that's what I did. Now, what was the second part of the question?
If there's any artist that you would really like to work with.
I mean, it's not like I have some kind of list. There's so many people that I would like to collaborate. So when an opportunity arises and if I have the time, I usually do it. If there's somebody I want to work with, I was blessed that I could collaborate with a lot of people on my first 2 solo records. So we'll see what happens. I don't have a definite name to give you, to be honest.
All right. I was just wondering because you got to work with Ozzy, which is a big deal for me. It's like, it's funny. It's one of those things. It's about the public perception. There are many great guitar players around, a lot of guys. They're very talented, but there is something about a person that works with Ozzy. It's like you become part of an exclusive group. And for us, the public that are from the outside looking in, our perception is like, okay, these guys, they are the great guys, and then there are the great guys that work with Ozzy, right? So you did this. You were invited. You worked with Ozzy for almost 10 years, right? You were part of his band.
About 7 years. 7 years.
And how did that impact your career? Like, I know that from the public perception, it does have an impact, but I was wondering about, like, as a musician, how did that impact you? Like, did that change the way you have to do things? How does that work?
It definitely had a big impact